Good afternoon and welcome to Mr. George's class here in Saigon. I'm very glad to have you join me here. My good friend Vu is doing the video for us. We've had some technical difficulties, but hopefully it's going to work. I'd like to walk through a lesson with you so that you can see how I would teach it. Today's topic is on superstitions. The belief that something bad might happen if something totally unrelated happens first. Superstitions are prevalent throughout the entire world, and so today's lesson will talk about superstitions around the world. It is thought in the West that some superstitions have negative connotations. I'm pointing that out because soon we will watch a video that uses that term. It's also widely accepted that some superstitions are so strong that they are ingrained in the culture. I would be asking students what this possibly means, ingrained in the culture. Does that mean that they are strong or weak? Yes, that means that they're very strong, part of what people believe generally throughout an entire cultural system. It's generally held that prevalent superstitions are promoted by unrelated circumstances. Some superstitions are actually quite funny. Others are kind of scary. But the problem with superstitions is that they don't seem to be related in anything particular. So we're going to be talking about prevalent superstitions and how they have unrelated sort of causes that make them happen. For example, here's one right here. It's widely held in the UK that throwing salt over one's right shoulder will ward off bad luck. I would be asking students what this might mean, to ward off bad luck. Again, these are key phrases in a video that we'll be showing soon. It's generally considered that certain situations are omens of misfortune. For example, if we see a black cat, something bad is going to happen. If we see a white bunny rabbit, something good might happen. In reality, the cat and the bunny have nothing to do with what's about to happen, but that's what these things are about. That's what superstitions are. So after we watch the video, I'd like to ask students what Vietnamese superstitions might exist. Let's see if I can bring this back. So at this point, we will watch a video on superstitions. Here is the video right here.
Superstitions. A driver in Beijing famously spent 1 million RMB on a license plate that read 88888 in 2016. Why would he spend so much on a license plate? In China, the number 8 is believed to be a sign of prosperity, success, and high social status, due to the similarity of the pronunciation ba in Chinese to the word fa, which means fortune. In other countries, certain numbers are also considered lucky or unlucky. In Western culture, the number 7 is seen as being lucky, but people will avoid the numbers 13 and 666 for their negative connotations of bad luck. These are examples of superstitions, things that are widely believed within a culture without much in the way of concrete proof. Superstitions in the UK. If you were to ask most people in the UK if they were superstitious, most people would probably say no. But if you ask those same people to walk under a ladder or open an umbrella indoors, you might raise a few eyebrows. Some superstitions are so ingrained in the culture that people no longer question them. Here, we take a look at some of the most prevalent superstitions in Britain. Salt. If you spill salt, you should scoop it up and throw it over your right shoulder. This is done to ward off bad luck. Mirrors. Be careful if you ever have to move a mirror. If you break a mirror, you will be hit with 7 years of bad luck. Black cats. Cats might be adorable, but watch out if a black cat crosses your path. They are believed to be omens of misfortune and death. Superstitions are often hard to explain and give reasons for, and may be different in different countries. What kinds of things are lucky or unlucky in your country?
Let's talk about superstitions in Vietnam. Can anybody talk about beliefs that maybe your grandparents or other traditional people might have in Vietnam? I'd love to hear what those thoughts are, because it reveals a whole lot about the culture. So let's think about that a little bit. What are superstitions in Vietnam? Where do they come from? And who believes in them? Does anybody have any suggestions about this? Let's talk about this. What do you think? So we would talk about this for about 5 or 10 minutes, something like that, depending on how the students responded to it. And then we would get to the presentation part of the lesson. This is where we combine practice with the presentation on passive reporting verbs. The active verb status would be, some people believe that shaking hands in a doorway will cause both parties to become enemies. Somehow shaking hands inside of a doorway will cause two people to become enemies. So you can see how there is not necessarily a logical connection between the action involved and the consequence involved. But this is what some people believe. And now that's an active way of saying the phrase. Some people believe. Some people is the subject, believe is the verb in the present tense. Let's talk about it in passive tense and see what happens. It is believed by some people that shaking of hands in doorways will cause both parties to become enemies. So you'll see what's happened is we have shifted the focus of the sentence from some people to the behavior that they engage in. So that is what's called a passive reporting verb. The purpose is to emphasize the action, in this case the shaking of the hands, rather than the actors or the people involved. It's also a new way to create another way to express what you have to say. At this point, I would hand out some handouts here, if I can pull them up. These are the things that you provided for me to use. I would make photocopies of this and hand it out to the students. And on this photocopy, we would talk about passive verb structures, how to change active into passive. There's also a student activity on the page where students interview one another and talk about superstitions or beliefs that they themselves have or know about other people having. And then the students would report back to the rest of the class what that's about using the targeted grammar and the target vocabulary. So that's the presentation and the practice. And that would take approximately 10, maybe 15 minutes to do. Then comes the wrap-up. In the wrap-up part of the lesson, I like going over what we have studied. In this case, we've studied some vocabulary, some particular phrases, as well as the grammar structures. So I would elicit from students what those vocabulary and grammar structures have been so that they could get it more or less concretized in their thinking here. I would ask the students to give examples using the targeted vocabulary and grammar structure in their reporting of what they've learned to reinforce it. The last part of the lesson would be reflection, and this is where I would reflect on what went well and what didn't go well. Well, in this particular case, the technology didn't go so well. I was having to flop in between different scenes on the laptop here to get it lined up, which I would wish I had done that differently. And the teacher revises the lesson as necessary. So that's the conclusion of the lesson today on superstitions and the use of passive voice to express them. Thank you. I welcome your comments.